believe you got your beginnings in show business on radio yourself. What are your memories of that?
Oh, I started out, my uncles had a radio show in South Georgia. It was a country show, and I was 9 years old, and my ambition was to play steel guitar in their band, and then I was always singing, and they thought, well, for a kid, you'd sing pretty good, so they started letting me sing on their radio show. Then later on down the line, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, or Marietta, which is outside of Atlanta, and there was a show called the Georgia Jubilee, which was also a radio show, and they would bring down a Grand Ole Opry star like little Jimmy Dickens and people like that, and they would have regulars on the show, and the regulars were Joe South and Jerry Reed and Ray Stevens and myself, and we all got to sing one song. So, yeah, I started out in radio. You're right.
Was there a particular point in time that you look back on now and look back on as the time that you decided you were going to make music a career option?
You know, I don't think I ever really sat down and said, this is what I'm going to do. I just kind of always knew I was going to do that. I was, I was surrounded by, my family played, and then when I went to Marietta, I was surrounded by all these talented people like Jerry Reed and Ray Stevens, and we just all knew we were going to try to make records and try to make a living in showbiz. I just kind of always knew that.
Would you describe yourself as terribly ambitious in those days?
We were all very ambitious. There was a whole crew of us. There was Tommy Rowe, Mac Davis, and of course Joe South and the rest of the guys, and we were all just, a man named Bill Lowry had a studio, and we hung out there like most kids hang out at a drugstore and, write songs and sing songs to each other, and eventually started making records. And the first records weren't all that hot, but anyway, it was a start. And but we were all very super ambitious.
Now, there was a venue called the Bamboo Ranch in Savannah where you worked in.
Oh, yeah. That was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was in Savannah, Georgia, and I went down there. The guy actually saw me when the Jubilee broke up. I got a job in a club there in Atlanta. In those days, it didn't matter if you were 12. You could reach, you could play, let you work in the club. So anyway, I was working there, and the guy came in and saw me, and he said, I have a club in Savannah that you should be there. And I went down there. Savannah, in case you know, that's like maybe 240 miles from Atlanta down on the coast. And it was a huge club. It was just like 2,500 people this place was whole. And after I got there, it wasn't my band. I just got hired as a singer. But after I got there, they needed a guitar player. On top of everything else Joe can do, besides being a great, writer and singer, and he was a great guitar player. He's played on Chain of Fools with Aretha Franklin, and then on down the line with Bob Dylan. Anyway, I suggested Joe for the guitar player, and he came down, and we saw these flowers coming in from New York, trying to book these big names, and we talked the boss into booking some. So as kids, we worked with Sam Cooke and Fats Domino, and on the other side of the coin, Marty Robbins and George Jones. Anybody that was anybody, we were there 4 years, and anybody that was anybody worked. We backed up Roy Orbison before we had a band, so it was just probably the best times of my life was during that time in Savannah.
You just mentioned some wonderful performers that you met there. Who do you think made the greatest impression on you?
Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
He was I've never heard anybody sing that. I mean, I knew who he was before he went pop. He had a group called the Soul Stirrers, and they were a gospel group, and they actually just owned the gospel world. They were the biggest thing in gospel. And a lot of people tried to discourage Sam from going pop because he was so popular as a gospel singer. And if you really want to hear him stretch out and do those whoa-whoas and those curlicues that he does so well, get one of those gospel albums, because he's just one of the greatest singers I ever heard. And in fact, Billboard did a top 100 all-time singers about a year ago, and Aretha was first, Ray Charles, I think, was second, and Elvis third, but Sam Cooke was fourth. And he just really, and a nice guy, because when he came in twice. And the first time he came in, he was tired. He just flew from California, but he's still nice. But the second time he came in, he had been in Savannah for a couple of days, and after I got through, he came over and put his arm around me and told me how much better I keep getting. And so that was just a thrill of a lifetime. And but he was my all-time, and still is my all-time favorite singer.
Yeah. Want to talk a little about Joe South? Sadly, we lost him not too long ago. Do you remember your very first meeting with Joe?
Yeah, it was on the Jubilee. You had to go down. It was a radio show. They did it on Friday, but they broadcast it back on Saturday. And I used to listen to it, and I was dying to get on there, but I didn't know how to go about it. And Priscilla Mitchell, who at the time was dating Jerry Reed, but they eventually got married, she and I went to school together. So I asked her how we got how to get on the show, and she said you go down and audition. So I went and auditioned and made the cut. And the first time I was on the show, I got an encore, which I thought was really kind of cool. But they mentioned that Joe South was going to be there the next week, and the walls came tumbling down. He was like God out there. And then that's where I met him at the Jubilee. We became friends instantly. And when the job came open down in Savannah, he came down and he just seemed to know what to do. I mean, he was a great writer, and it was his idea for us to catch a train. We were making, there was no studios back there like there are now. We were making demos in radio studios and sending them out to different people, and nothing. So we finally saved our money, and there used to be a train that ran between Savannah and Atlanta called the Nancy Hanks, and we called that train and went to Atlanta and had some friends. Joe's brother played drums, and they made this really god-awful record and took it to Bill Lowry, and he thought we might have something, so he started taking us to Nashville. And we had, gosh, probably 5, 6 records before we finally connected with a hit.
You covered so many of his songs. What was it about the songs of Joe South that appealed to you personally so much?
We were just on the same page. And those, nowadays when you do when you hear a demo, it's pretty much like the record's going to be, But back then, he would just sit down with his guitar and play the song to me, and I knew exactly what he wanted from me and exactly what he was trying to say. We just really were soulmates. We really understood each other, because we had the same background. We loved the same kind of music, and he was just a poet. I mean, he could look at you and write an unbelievable song, And I opened my big mouth one day. He sang The Games People Play for me, and I went, "That's the greatest song you ever wrote," So he said, "Great, I'll cut it myself." So he got his own career going. And he also wrote "I'll Never Promise You a Rose Garden" for me, and like a dummy, I didn't like it all that much. So, but he wrote "Hush" the same day, and I did like "Hush," and it did well too. So anyway, you can't pick them all.
No,
but he was just extraordinary. I'm telling you, without exaggeration, the man was a genius.
Yeah,
he really truly was. And he sure is going to be in there.
He had such success with his songs being covered by others, and I always felt with the quality of his songs and with his guitar playing, he really could have and should have been a bigger star in his own right. Was there something holding him back?
He didn't like performing live. I don't know if it was stage fright or he was real shy as a person, even though he would do all these wonderful things. He just didn't. And he was a great performer. I mean, at the Jubilee, he would kill him, And then he got a deal with the Capitol, and at their convention, he stole the show. I mean, away from everybody. But performing just wasn't his cup of tea. I think he was shy in public, and I think if he had probably made more personal appearances or been on TV more, or people could have seen him in concert more, he'd have been huge. I mean, he was huge anyway as a writer, but he would have been a huge artist.
Yeah. Now, I guess it would be difficult to talk to you and not have the subject of the song "Down in the Boondocks" come up at some point. Do you remember the first time you heard the song?
Yeah. I I was living in Cincinnati, Ohio. For some reason, oh God, somebody turned the sprinkler on my back. Hang on. Oh boy, the sprinkler just came on. Okay, this is going to sound dumb to you, but I was a dumb kid. They filmed Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear in Savannah with Robert Mitchum, and I got to do a little something in that, and then some other stuff. So I had about 7 records that were out, did nothing. So I got in my head I wanted to be an actor, which is really, really smart. And so I went to Cincinnati. I met a guy that was working with Bobby V, and he said, I'm leaving the road, going to Cincinnati, and there's a club. If you get the job, you can make as much money on the weekend as you do here all week. So my plan was to go up there and try to go to drama school and, work on the weekends. And then Joe called, and a lot of people get this mixed up, but here's really what happened. Gene Pitney was my idol. I just thought he was the greatest singer, and I could sing like Gene a little bit. And so Joe called and said, I got a song that would be great for Gene Pitney, but you can sing like Gene Pitney, so we'll cut it like a Gene Pitney record. The people will think it's Gene Pitney. By the time they find out it's you, it'll be too late. It'll be a hit. That's the way we thought back then. So we even Pitney had a record out called 24 Hours in Tulsa, and we even stole a guitar lick. It went, dearest darling, went down into the Boondocks, and we double tracked like Gene did. And then Gene, I finally got a chance to meet him. He thought, I thought maybe I drank too much one night, and I forgot I cut the record. It sounded so much like me. So that was really a compliment. Yeah. But that record really changed my whole. And plus, the other records we had were on small labels, independent labels. And that was the first record on a major label. We got to deal with Columbia Records, and that meant a whole lot, But that record changed my life. I did the Dick Hart tour. We did 91 Nighters and met all these wonderful people. I felt like a fan that got to ride the bus. Tom Jones was the headliner, Peter and Gordon. How old are you? Do you remember these people at all?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, so it was just a fun time. It really was.
We do hear a lot about those Dick Clark Caravan of Stars tour. They sound like a combination of hard work and good fun. Would that be a pretty good description?
Yeah, you're dead on, exactly, because we worked every single night. I mean, there was no nights off, but we had such a good time, Plus, you didn't work that hard. You only did like 3 or 4 songs, but just the traveling and the grind of every night. But everybody was young, and we were just happy to be there,
You followed up down in the Boondocks with I Knew You When, which was extremely successful as well. Was it difficult at that time at such a young age not to be overwhelmed by the sudden success?
No, because at the Bamboo, I'd worked with all these big guys. Anybody came through there, and by the time, I think if I just walked off the street and all of a sudden got a hit, it would have affected me more. But I've been around the greatest singers in the world. I mean, Jackie Wilson and all those guys, so I was kind of used to that atmosphere. And being a cocky kid, it just never dawned on me that one day, I just knew one day I'd get a hit record. I mean, I believed that with all my heart, and so by the time it happened, I was pretty much prepared for it. We cut, in fact, I thought I Knew You When was going to be the single. I flew down from Cincinnati, and we cut Boondocks, and we cut I Knew You When. In those days, it was a singles market. You just cut 45. So we cut those 2 and 2 backsides. And I went back to Cincinnati telling everybody. By the time I started doing a lot of hops there in Cincinnati, so I had a little following there among the teenagers, and also I was in really good with the disc jockeys doing their hops and stuff. And I went back and told all of them that I Knew You When was going to be the single. I really thought that was going to be the first record, and because I liked it a lot, and because I like R&B, I guess. And anyway, I'm glad Boondocks was the first record because it did well, but so did I Knew You When. probably the two. It sounds crazy, but probably the two I like I Know You Went better.
Did having that success put pressure on you, continual pressure to keep coming up with more hits?
Yeah, after a while we thought you were scared. You were almost afraid to cut anything. You go, would vote on it and what do you think? You know, this, that, and the other. And then the third record did okay. I think it got like 40 or something like that. Then we hit a little dry spell. Hush did good. And then Cherry Hill Park did good. And then we hit a long dry spell. I mean, I couldn't get arrested. Luckily, I had a good manager back then, and I got a job at the Flamingo Hotel there in Las Vegas. So, I was making a good living. But record-wise, I just, all of a sudden, it was groups, and I just didn't fit in with what was going on. But luckily for me, in the late 70s, early 80s, Kenny Rogers started having big hits in the country field. And so did B.J. Thomas, and so did even Bill Medley, one of the Righteous Brothers. So I thought, there may be a shot for me in country. And so I went back I was living in California then, so I went back to Nashville and looked around for a song and finally found a song called Burn Like a Rocket and cut it and could not give it away. And finally Bill Lowry, the man I mentioned before, put it out on independent. He didn't believe it was a hit either, but he put it out on an independent label as a favor. And lo and behold, the thing hit really big and got me a deal with Atlantic Records. And then I had like a third career, so I was been very, very fortunate.
Were you a big country music fan growing up?
Oh yeah, we in fact at the Bamboo it's more of a we sang pop, we sang Motown stuff, and we sang everything from James Brown to Buck Owens, But I know as much about country music as I know about any other kind of music. I did because my uncles had a country band. I listened to country music and. I did the Grand Ole Opry, so I know as much about country as any other genre. Yeah, I love country music.
So in that period between when your hit singles started to fade away and before your success in country music, did you at any time consider actually giving music away, or you're still determined to soldier on?
No, that's the only thing I could do. I said I refused to get out of the business. So luckily, I had a good manager. So luckily, during that time, I did the Ed Sullivan Show, and I did all the little talk shows. The only show I didn't do I really, really wanted to do was Johnny Carson. I was a big fan of his and never got a chance to do his show, but all the rest of them I did. So, the old mug stayed out there, and I worked Vegas and also worked up at Lake Tahoe. So, I was doing okay. I was making a living. I wasn't having any hit records. And if you're a singer, there's nothing sweeter than having a hit record. It's just, you can't describe it. It's just because you go in the studio with some guys with a blank sheet of blank tape, and you get together and you create something that people are willing to go out and put money down for, and people are willing to play on the radio. That's pretty special.
And of course, while working at Vegas, you got to know Elvis Presley. Any famous or any favorite Elvis memories?
Well, the first time I met him, not to sound gay, but he was the best looking guy I've ever seen in my life. He was just absolutely gorgeous man. I remember the date. It was January 31st, 1970. And, of course, we were all just huge. In the South especially, just huge. He's like God to all of us, and he could not have been any nicer, and we spent a little time together. And then later on, I worked up in Lake Tahoe, and he was working in the main room, and I was working in the lounge, and our names were on the marquee together, in red. And I never even went out and took a picture of that. But Emory Gordy Jr., who played on Boondocks and was later on Neil Diamond's bass player, Neil took some time off, and Emory got a job with Elvis. So I saw him every night. I'd go over there and shoot the breeze, and never took a picture with him or nothing. It was just crazy. But he was just a terrific guy.
Now, fast forwarding to recent times, you recorded a gospel album not too long ago, which I believe was a long time
Yeah.
ambition of yours. Did you do you think you ended up with the kind of gospel album you always wanted?
I'm sorry, say again?
The album that came out of those sessions, was that the type of gospel album you'd always wanted to have?
No, no, no. What I want to have is I like the album. The guy named Charlie Craig wrote the songs. He's a great writer and some great songs in there. But my ambition before I, sail off into the sunset, the Soul Stirrers are gone, the original, but they still have the name. They still have the group, and they still sing the same songs the way they did back in the 50s and 60s. I would love to do a gospel album, a real soulful gospel album with them, and I keep looking them up to find out where they are, and I can't seem to track them down, but that would be the ultimate. If I could sing a Sam Cooke song, Soul Stirrers, that would be, if nobody ever heard it but me, it would be worth it,
So that's
I got a big picture of Sam Cooke and myself on my dresser, and I really, he was just something else. He really was.
So that album is on top of your to-do list.
Well, I'd love to do that, yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Now, yourself, you're not a prolific songwriter by any means. Your great talent, I've always felt, is interpreting the songs of others. Do you think that's an underestimated talent these days in general, the art of song interpreter?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
You're not you don't write a lot of songs yourself. Your talent is interpreting the songs of other people. Do you think that's a talent that a lot of people underestimate these days? The art of song interpreting.
Yeah, I really do. I'm glad you said that, because every song I sang, Joe offered me to give me half of it, because he said, you made it your own and you did this to it, because we get down and I work with it and try to make it unique or sound like it's coming from me, but there is an art to that, because it's not that way now, because a lot of singers write their own songs. But in the old days, most of the guys that wrote the songs couldn't sing a lick. I mean, you just have to get down and go, boy, and have to really work at it, because the guy, most of them couldn't sing. If you could, they'd probably be cutting the song themselves. But in those days, and of course, you didn't have these elaborate demos like you have now. It was just like, in fact, they sent Bill Lowry the song "Just Walk On By." The guy cut it on a home recorder, and you hear the baby in the background crying and stuff. And how he figured, he heard something. I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm telling you, there's something to this song." So anyway, he had a fantastic ear, but it was a different world back then. It sure was. But it was a fun world, because we did everything at one time. If a guy goofed up, you did it all over again. If the piano player hit a wrong note, well, you have to stop and do it all over again, because you did everything at one time. If you ever hear the song "Hunka Hunka Burning Love" by Elvis, there's a bass line that Emery Gordy's playing. It goes, "Ding, ding, 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 ding." Well, he's goofing off, He didn't mean that. He was just going to do it over again, and Elvis wouldn't let him. He said, "I'm not going to sing that anymore." So anyway, you did everything at one time, and if you listen to some of those records in the 50s, God, there were mistakes all over the place, but it just felt good,
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, Emery, had a record called Hush, and on the last verse, he's supposed to come in with a dum 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 dum, and on the last one, he forgot to come in for a whole measure. And then he called up, and I was like, Elvis, I had sung out. I'd been screaming for like the last 2 or 3 hours. I said, we'll just leave it blank, and they'll think we did it on purpose, because I can't sing this anymore. I'm losing my voice over here. So it just kind of made it real back then. Now the records are so perfect, it's just almost ridiculous,
Yeah. I read elsewhere, I read you saying that you considered your longevity in music as one of your great achievements. What for you is the golden rule of survival in music for so long?
Boy, with luck for one thing,
Yeah.
and being surrounded by talented people, and also tenacity. I mean, there was no reason in the world I should have ever had a hit after my little run in the 60s, but I just felt like I had something left to say, you know, and so I think that counts for it, you know, and also luck, a lot of luck.
What would be the best piece of career advice you could give to somebody starting out in music today?
Well, you know, I don't even know if I don't record this, but it just seems so hard now, you know. It's such a big, big business, and you have to have all this money to even get started, and it would take a lot of guts, I think, to really try now. You know, I admire anybody that's out there, you know, trying to get started, because it's always been tough. It's always been a tough racket. It's always been a tough road to hoe, but it seems to me like it's even tougher now, you know. But if I would offer some positive advice, I would say believe in yourself, and just keep on. If they say no, find somebody who'll say yes, you know.
Yeah,
Just believe in yourself.
that's good advice. So, in terms of your live performing these days, what makes up a Billy Joe Royal set list these days?
A hodgepodge. We do a little bit of everything. We come on with a Chuck Berry song, and then we do the records, and we do a little bit of just regular straight ahead rock and roll, and we do some traditional country. We do something hopefully for everybody, you know. I got a great band, and we enjoy playing, and they play so great and they sing so great. It's a pleasure just to be, you know, out there with them. So it's just a variety of everything.
I've seen in some recent clips of yours on YouTube. You're still sounding fantastic. Are you a subscriber to the
Thank you.
belief? Are you a subscriber to the belief that a singing voice can be like a fine wine and get better with age?
I don't know. I don't know. I know. I have to take a little bit better care of myself now to hit those notes, you know. But I think if anything, it's probably a little richer, you know. The one good DJ Thomas and I do a lot of stuff together, you know. And the one thing we have prided ourselves in, and it's a stupid thing to be, you know, to keep wanting to do it that way, but we refuse to lower the keys. We're just about every artist we know has changed the keys and lowered them, you know. But we take pride in doing those records in the same key that we recorded them in, you know. So yeah, I can still hit the notes. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Still sounding great. Billy Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute honour and a pleasure to catch up with you and
Oh,
talk.
golly. It was my pleasure. You did a great job, and I enjoyed going down memory lane with you.
Thanks for all the wonderful songs over the years, and we'll look forward and keep our fingers crossed that Soul Stirrers record does happen one day.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.